Hey there everybody, this is Robin with Creative2xmom, and today's video is going to be the best of the past homeschool year. So welcome back to my channel. My name is Robin and this is Creative2xmom. This channel is all about homeschooling, parenthood, and thriving in the day-to-day. And today's video is the best of the best from our past homeschool year. I went back through my homeschool planner and I picked out some of our favorite games, some of our favorite books, some of our favorite enrichment programs so that I could share them with you as you're planning your next homeschool year. I tried to break them up into categories, so I will leave that down in the show notes below in case you have a specific category that you're looking at, or hopefully you just want to see everything that we love throughout the year. The first thing I'm going to talk about, of course, is books. You all know that I love my books. We have huge library hauls that we do once a week, always finding new things to read about and enjoy. And I love being able to take literature and pull it into our nature studies, pull it into our history. So this was the category that I was for sure going to have the most, and it was also the category that was the hardest to whittle down and not overwhelm you with. So I'm going to start with our favorite read-alouds from the past year. The first one is Shadow on the Mountain, and this book really surprised me. I pulled it out when we were studying World War I, and it's based on a true story of a boy spy in Norway during the Nazi occupation. There were parts of it that were a little rough. I had to edit it a little bit because I read this with my 7th and 4th graders. 7th grader totally could have handled it. A little bit much for the 4th grader, but still he got a good overall picture of what was happening. I didn't think I was going to like this book. For whatever reason, I don't know if it was the cover, I don't know if it was the description, what it was about this book. There was just something that I thought, I'm not sure I'm going to like this. But all three of us, as soon as the chapter was over, we were begging for another one. And I was really excited to see that it was based on a true story, which made this a great addition to our history study, really brought that time period to life in our homeschool. The second read aloud that I want to talk about is A Night Divided. This was another one of those books that was suggested by our Story of the World curriculum. We were in volume 4 this year, and when we came around to talking about the Berlin Wall, this was the read aloud that we incorporated into our evening time together. And I had been looking forward to it. I had seen it online at the beginning of the year, and I thought, ooh, I really can't wait till we get to that one. And it was so good. It was the story of a young girl and a young boy, and their father is on the other side of the wall with a brother. They're still stuck in Berlin with their mother, and it's their daring escape. The boy has been called up to report to the army, and their mom just wants to toe the line. She doesn't want any trouble, but they start to realize that they're already being watched, and no matter what they do, they have no future there, so they have to escape. And they risk everything. They risk their lives to get out of Berlin. It was one of those stories that was good on so many levels. You see the family relationship, and I'm always looking for books that encourage a healthy family relationship, and that was really good in this one. It was also really bringing history to life in an engaging way. The story was incredible. The characters were incredible. You find yourself constantly being torn by who's a good guy, who's a bad guy. It was one of those books that I myself would be willing to go back and read again. Along those same lines, we pulled from our library Little Pilgrim's Progress. Now, I remember back in my middle school years reading through the regular Pilgrim's Progress and enjoying it, but finding that it was just slightly over my head, a little bit hard to access. So when I found this copy at our local library, I thought, okay, that's perfect. The chapters were only about 3 or 4 pages long, so they slid right into our morning time as a good way of being included in our Bible study, and it really brings the concepts and the ideas of the original Pilgrim's Progress to a lower level. Again, I read this with my 7th and 4th graders, and it put it in a way that was really accessible for my 4th grader to understand what was happening, We got really excited for Christian as he was going along his journey, and it was easy to see the allegory that was happening throughout the story. I think for my 8th grader next year, if we were to go back and do it again, I would probably go through the original Pilgrim's Progress with her. But for where we were at this year, I felt like she was just barely topping out of the age range of this book. It was a really good way to spur on some biblical conversations with some ideas and concepts that I normally wouldn't think to have those conversations with my kids. It's one of those that, having read it now in hindsight, I love that we have it from our library, but if I couldn't get it from the library, would I spend the money on it? Absolutely. Now, something that I showed in the introduction was this 50 Favorite Birds coloring book. I purchased this off Amazon, and it's published by Dover Publishing. We went on to Simply Charlotte Mason, and I decided this was the year we were going to do the bird study. Yes, my kids are a little bit older. Yes, we've done birds in the past, and we've learned to identify birds, but I really wanted to read the Burgess book with them. I knew it was going to be a little bit young for them. I knew it was going to be something that was going to, in a way, be a coasting subject for us, but it was one of those things that I just didn't want them to miss. And I'm so glad that we did it. We took the Burgess bird book for kids, and we looked up the birds that went with each chapter. Again, Simply Charlotte Mason has the bird study already laid out for you, so she corresponds which chapters go with what pages in this book. And we just read through it every day. The kids would color the pictures as I was reading, and then they would put notes in the margins. It was a really good way for us to get a broad overview of so many different birds that even I didn't know about and how they're related to each other. You see some birds that look similar, and then they have absolutely no relationship. The other thing I was worried about with the Burgess bird book is I thought, is it going to be too factual? Is it not going to be engaging enough? And I was really surprised the way the story was woven in there. You connect this sort of community of not just birds, but animals and the forest. I felt like it was a really good way of launching conversations about ecology, a really good way of launching conversations about food chains and interconnection and biodiversity. It was such a rich, I mean, you can take it for what it is and make it a lower level study, or you can launch it into conversations that can be really, really rich for even an 8th or 9th grader, I would say. So for us, I was surprised how much we enjoyed this study, and I would absolutely, if I had little ones, I would absolutely do this one again. The last book I want to share with you goes along with that nature study as well, and that is Nature Anatomy by Julie Rothman. I have held off on buying these books for so long. I think it's that initial financial investment that makes it hard, but when we were doing our tree study, I thought I really, really want to get that. So I waited for it to go on sale, and I picked it up, and I have not been disappointed at all. There is so much in here. The illustrations are engaging, and there's so much information, the diagrams. This book covers so much. Let me just read to you some of the topics. You have common ground, so things like landscaping, fossils, rock cycle, landforms. You've got the atmosphere, what creates sunsets and rainbows. You've got flowers and bees and butterflies. We spent a lot of time in that section. Taking a hike, this was another chapter we spent a lot of time in. It was the anatomies of trees and flowers and leaves and bark, patterns. You've got bats, you've got, there's so much in this book that I have not regretted it at all. If you look at it, it's a pretty thick book, and I think when I was able to get it on sale, it was around $10. Since then, I have been watching eBay. I've been watching for used copies. The next two I want are Food Anatomy and Ocean Anatomy, and I'm hoping to purchase both of those next year to go along with some of our studies. But if you've been on the fence like me, this is beyond worth the price. Alright, the next category I want to talk about is games, and I have 3 of them in front of me. One is sort of an honorable mention, and 2 that we absolutely loved this year. The first one is Sky Joe, and I think I have talked about Sky Joe in a previous video. If not, my plan is to record a video very soon with some gameplay so you can get a better look at it. But basically, it's a math game. Everybody gets 12 cards. You flip over 2 at the beginning of play, and you're trying to have the lowest score possible at the end of the game. So if you have high numbers, you're trying to trade them out for lower numbers. It's a good strategy game in that you are always thinking about how can I get lower numbers but go out before my sister or go out before my grandma, because you want them to be stuck with the higher points. First one to 100 points loses. This is actually a really fun game because it even goes into the negatives, and it's one of those games, I think it says starts at ages 8. My son has been playing since he was about 7. But it's one of those that even my husband loves. My mom, every time she comes, always begs the kids to play this one with her. It's a good strategy, math, computations game to get the brain going. This one is sort of my honorable mentions because it is an old standby that we have loved and enjoyed for many years. But in 4th grade, I'm always looking at the relationships of the states and capitals, where states are at in the United States. So with a 4th grader this year, I pulled this one out even more than we typically would. And again, it's one of those, I think I'm going to do a separate video just on this particular game. It runs around $10, I think, on Amazon. And I hesitated again for a while to purchase this one, but we have gotten so much play out of it. I would definitely recommend this one. I think even down to probably 1st grade. This says 8 and up. But I think in 1st grade, kids are already asking about, well, where does so-and-so live? Where does grandma live? Where do my cousins live? I think this would be an easy one to get them sort of thinking along those lines of the relationships of the states. And the last game we have was an idea that I have shared on Instagram. And this isn't even an original idea. I can't take credit for this one. This was suggested or inspired by something that Hannah at Pepper and Pine did. And she created her own Professor Noggins games. Now, if you've seen the Professor Noggins games, they are trivia cards. They've got these great illustrations on the front. They come in a variety of subjects, and then they have 6 trivia questions on the back. You roll a dice to see which trivia question you get. I had seen her do this before, so I copied her idea. I went to Walmart and I bought these card cases. Now, I don't even think they're called card cases. They're about the size of a crayon box. You can usually get them for just under $1 at back to school time. And I cut my white cardstock. Now, I wanted a game that was going to go over trees and flowers, which I was not able to find a Professor Noggins game that would do that. So we created our own. We cut our cardstock. I had the kids work on the illustrations, and that was part of the reason why I bought Nature Anatomy. Again, this helped us a whole lot in our study and in our gameplay. And then the kids, as part of my evaluation, they wrote the trivia questions. I had them give me a list, and then I copied them on the back, and we sort of used that as a checkup on how they were doing in the unit. We also used this in as far as testing, as far as test prep. So many different ways that you can do this, and so many different topics that you can create your own trivia cards. I've shared this on Instagram, which I will link down below, but we will be doing this one again. Alright, I have one movie that I want to mention, and it sort of came out of nowhere. We decided to read A Christmas Carol and create a book study from it over the holidays, and somebody mentioned that we should watch The Man Who Invented Christmas. Now, I had seen this on Netflix before. I think it was Netflix. And I thought, ooh, it looked a little dark. It looked like something I wasn't really into, but I trusted this person and I trusted their recommendation. I was completely shocked by it. It is so well done, and it really brought to life Charles Dickens and what he was going through as he wrote A Christmas Carol, how his own life was brought into that story, what influenced him, and you start to see the connections, especially if you read the book first. You make connections from the book to his own life, to his own circumstances. We did a lot of study in the Victorian time period as we were reading it, and so the movie really brought so many of those things full circle for us, and I would say it really was one of my favorites. I think we will be returning to that one again and again. So the last category I want to talk about are some handicrafts, just some fun things that we added to our homeschool that surprised me a little bit. And the first one are these cross-stitch projects. Now I wish I would have brought my daughters out because she has finished hers. My son is working on his frog. I happened to be looking around Dollar Tree a few months ago, just kind of exploring the kids section, and I found their cross-stitch projects, and I think there was 4 different designs. Now each one comes with the plastic. It comes with all the yarn you need. They come with plastic needles, so if you've got little ones, I've got a 4th grader who is stumbling his way through this project, and it comes with an instruction sheet. And I, for $1, didn't expect a whole lot. I wasn't sure about the quality or if there would be enough of everything to finish the projects, but for $1, these have been the best handicraft projects that we have invested in this year. For the price, I have been amazed, and we've learned a ton. My son is learning so much about stitching and eye-hand coordination, and that's been his big thing. He's like, I don't really care to learn to sew, and I'm like, yeah, but this goes beyond that. There's a lot of eye-hand coordination and development happening there as well. So for $1, definitely go check it out. I was in there a few days ago. They still have these on the shelves, so go pick them up. And the last one was just a fun handicraft that we again did over Christmas. We were looking at reindeer in our science unit. I happened to find this one on Pinterest. We created reindeer ornaments. They were super cute. When my husband cut down our Christmas tree to fit in our Christmas tree stand, I had him cut a couple of rounds off for me. So basically, the wood was free. We already had paints in our craft room. A lot of the extra stuff was stuff that we already had on hand. These were the most inexpensive project that we did all year, and we were able to take them. We took one to a Christmas ornament exchange. We didn't use these as teacher gifts, but I think they would make great teacher gifts. If you have a piano teacher or an art teacher or something like that that you want to give a present to at Christmas, these would really go over very well. The kids had a lot of fun with them. I had a lot of fun with this one. And it's one of those that I'm so glad that we pinned and completed this year. So that's our best of the best from the past homeschool year. Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you're loving. I am slowly trickling in curriculum for 2021. How is that even possible? So I am slowly pulling things, and I'm always looking for little enrichment ideas or gameplay. I love including games in our homeschool. So leave me some of your favorites in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscription button before you click off. And we'll see you next time. Bye guys.